All right, we are back here. NFL season kicking off tonight. Joining me today, one of the lead NFL writers, The Athletic, does a lot of great stuff on quarterbacks for the site. Mike Sando is back with us. Mike, how are you?
Good to be here, Mike. Thanks for having me on. I'm always excited for another season. This is my 25th season covering the NFL. A lot more seasons following the NFL as a fan before that. So I'm always eager to get it going when we get to opening day.
Yeah, and if you're not an Athletic subscriber, I recommend signing on. Mike does a great article. You got the quarterback tiers where he talks a bunch of NFL executives and ranks where they rank the quarterbacks from the best tier to the worst tier. I always find it's a fascinating read. So get ready for the season.
Yeah, it is. And I'm sure we'll reference it maybe today.
Absolutely here. And sorry to get started here. I want to say, obviously, I'm New York based. So we're with the New York teams here. So I want to start here with the Jets because obviously they have better roster this season. They did a good job the last season. Now we have this weird Zach Wilson thing going on here where they told us on Monday, oh, he might be ready for week 1. Now it's not till at least week 4. What do you make of the Jets this year?
Yeah, well, that wasn't going to happen. At the time, I thought, does Saleh really think that like the other team now is like, shoot, we have to prepare for these two different quarterbacks? There's no way they're just going to throw them into the wolves at this stage. It would be unbelievable. So this seems much more reasonable. I do, I think most people feel like the Jets have upgraded and are in better position. It is a weird dynamic, at the start of the year to not have Zach Wilson playing and to have Joe Flacco in there is just sort of like we're biding our time, right? Because the evaluation has to include Zach Wilson this season. So, hopefully for them, they've done enough around the quarterback position to be improved and be at least representative and have a chance. But I think we're all waiting for Wilson to get in there because the season hinges on how he plays.
Yeah, I feel like with them, my sort of read on them is like it's not realistic to expect them to be in the playoffs during how deep the AFC got, but like
Right.
they're not at least like on one of those like in the hunt graphics that towards the end of the season. I feel like then you have a problem with the direction the franchise is going.
Yeah, you would sure hope not. But you're right. If they could make a transfer to the NFC East, trade spots with the Giants or something, then you could maybe keep hope alive. The AFC is a little bit harder, but from where this franchise has been, and the Giants are kind of this way too. You're sort of looking for competence, right? You're looking for steps. You're looking for evidence that hey, there's a plan in place here, and they're making progress.
Yeah, go to the Giants for me too, because obviously they're behind the Jets. Really just started the rebuild, new front office, new head coach, some new players. A lot of the old players are still here. So, like, if you're a Giant fan, what should you be looking at from this year? What do you hope to take out of it?
Well, I think some of this is an evaluation of what was there previously and just how sort of bad that was it because obviously they didn't come in and ramp up the roster to make a run this year, right? I mean, it is ground floor and the expectation should be pretty low, but I think if we feel like Brian Daboll and Joe Shane are competent people, right? Like they're their first time in the role, obviously, but if we feel like a lot better about them in terms of what was there before, then do they just get a boost? It's a little bit like I'm not going to say that it's the same type of thing as Jacksonville because it was different deficiencies, but like the fact that the Jacksonville just who was there before left upgrades Jacksonville before we talk about who's there now, right?
Yeah.
So were the Giants just kind of in such a funk with the whole Dave Gettleman era and what had become of the coaching staff that just by removing that, or do they get some wins? Right? Do they just sort of come to the surface at least? I think that's an interesting part about them. And I know you had put down, for our potential topics today, like who's a team that could, disappoint or surprise. And I don't think the Giants are going to surprise anybody like they're going to be in the playoffs necessarily. But I think the expectations have been suppressed so far, and then they weren't really ramped up by the new regime, right? They came in and were like almost admitting, hey, this is a process. That could they just be better than people expect? Because they're not no one's expecting anything, and the expectations have been suppressed for so long.
Yeah, that's for sure. Absolutely here. And speaking of teams that are not have expectations that are suppressed, I was talking about the Rams who won the Super Bowl last year. A couple of key players turn over here, but they are kicking the season off tonight at home against Buffalo. And it feels like we've been waiting almost 20 years for a team to repeat. I think the 03-04 Patriots that went back to back here. Do you think the Rams can break that streak this year?
I just think it's very unlikely because they were unlikely to win the Super Bowl last year. As good as the team they are, any one team's odds are low because you're going to take the field, right? There's just too many things that have to go right. So they could be an incrementally better team. They could be 5% better this year and lose in the second round of the playoffs because it is a one and done type situation. So I'm not really holding them to, oh, it's a disappointment if you don't do that again. I just kind of want to see, hey, do they have a significant drop off? Sometimes we do see that when you enjoy team success, at a lot of levels, it's real easy to go from we to me, right? Hey,
Yeah.
we did this together. Now I want mine. And I'm not saying I see that with the Rams. It's hard to know, but I want to see if they guard against just sort of sliding back, right? That hey, we did it. No, that doesn't. You started the whole new year this year from the ground floor, and well, I think their division cooperated with them a little bit. Obviously, with Russell Wilson being traded, who the Rams own the Seahawks anyway, but there's uncertainty with Trey Lance. I think there's uncertainty with Arizona. They don't even have DeAndre Hopkins the first 6 games of the year, so it looks like it sets up well for the Rams, but repeat, no.
All right. So, but obviously that's unlikely here, but there are some good contenders in the NFC challenge. Then the two big ones, obviously Green Bay, which in the top seed the last 2 years, lost in the playoffs at home. Tampa Bay, obviously Tom Brady's back. A lot of that team is back here. You have to put your chip on one of them to be the bigger threat to the Rams. Who is it?
I'm going to lean towards the Packers. It's so interesting as you think about how to build and maintain a team. Kind of when you get one thing that you feel better about, another thing sort of falls off, doesn't it? And I feel like with the Packers are kind of that team this year that I kind of want to pick for the Super Bowl in the NFC. They've been really good. I do feel like their defense should be better. I'm hopeful for them that the new special teams coach squares them away in that area. I think for a long time under Mike McCarthy and others, they've just been up and down on the defense special teams component. And even if you have a great player like Rodgers at quarterback, I wrote about this on Monday. If you're really inconsistent in those phases, you're just going to swerve into a championship every once in a while, right?
Yeah.
If you're squared away in those areas like Tom Brady's teams have been, you're going to be in the championship or the Super Bowl all the time. I just feel like defensively they might, and special teams a little bit, maybe they can get that right this year. But then at the same time, then their receiver situation's all, screwed up in the back of my mind. So I'll trust Aaron Rodgers. I'll trust their defense gets better, that Rich Bisaccia, fixes the special teams, and I'll side with them. But um, they it's not a guarantee either.
Is there anything like specifically against Tampa that had you sort of like put
Yeah.
Green Bay higher?
Um, we'll see where they're at. I felt like their off season had so many question marks and we couldn't really figure out what was going on. I think the Brady situation's interesting, from the retirement to the comeback to the coaching change to 11 days off in camp to him just how he looked physically to the middle of his offensive line kind of falling apart. Uh, it's to Chris Godwin coming off of an injury. Uh, sure, they could get all the way back there, but I just kind of feel like maybe there's more evidence that it's gonna be harder for them. We'll see.
Yeah, we'll see about them indeed. I was obviously the other division, the NFC East here. I mean, nobody's really expects the Giants and the Commanders do much. It really is a two-horse racing the Cowboys and the Eagles. Cowboys obviously lost Tyron Smith for a long time in the preseason here. They lost defections the off season. Do you think the Eagles didn't have to catch it? I think it's still Dallas' division to lose.
Oh, I probably lean towards Philly on the strength of their roster. Although it's funny, I did a piece today that I do every year before the season. NFL execs in the league talking about what's the concern for every team, and the concern on Philly was a little overrated here with the offseason roster hype, right? I mean, there's been all we hear about is how amazing their roster is, and I do think it is good. And so I probably think they're probably the team that I side with. I do feel like the Cowboys probably lost some talent, obviously receiver position, the offensive line a little bit. And I don't like their setup overall, just the owner, the coach, the just the structure of their organization, I think makes it harder to coach the team, harder to have consistency because of Jerry Jones. I don't think he's a good owner from a football standpoint uh, in the last, couple decades. So maybe I lean a little bit towards Philly there, but We'll see how, like, Washington doesn't, there's nothing sexy about Washington at all, but like, it wouldn't be surprised me if they were 8-9 or 9-8 and kind of, around that mix. Every one of those teams benefits from an easier schedule, right? Because they play each other. The scheduling rotation. Another piece I did was who plays the toughest schedule of opposing quarterbacks, and it was like the NFC East was all in the easiest realm based on their own division, and then who else they're playing.
Yeah, I believe they're playing. I think it's the AFC South and the NFC Central. I see North. I feel like those two really do help out in that regard.
Yeah, I like the NFC Central reference. That does go back to the day. Remember when Tampa was in the NFC Central with Green Bay? Anyway.
Yeah, absolutely. Here and go to the other fun division. I think probably the best division in football, the AFC West, where all four teams legitimately could make the playoffs. They could all finish 8-9. I think it's just such a battle in there. Like, who do you like coming out of the division? How many teams do you think they send to the playoffs?
I'm gonna lean to Kansas City and just say prove it to me, and then I'm gonna say probably the Chargers. I think the Raiders are in there too. When you gave me the list of potential topics and there were what team could disappoint, I feel like it could be Denver. I just feel like combination of the division, new quarterback, right? I mean they're gonna. I don't think their weapons are that good. I mean, I just don't. I mean, I think Cortland Sutton's fine, but the one guy they could count on was kind of Tim Patrick, I think, and for consistency, and he's out. They traded Noah Fant. Russell Wilson hasn't been as great the last year and a half. Maybe he bounces back. I mean, shoot, no one's going to be surprised if he has a great year. I just feel like with the expectations that they've leaned into, no one's talking about. They lost Vic Fangio. I mean, that's a really good look. Say what you want about a head coach, but for coordinating your defense, I mean, you're not going to be as good as Vic Fangio this year. I don't care almost who you get. Also, they had Mike Munchak was a great line coach, and he just goes away. No one talks about it. And now you have a quarterback who holds the ball, hasn't shown quite as much elusiveness, puts pressure on the offensive line and the protection component. It's just not that easy, right, to plug in. So I wonder if Denver sort of has a year here where they're good, but could they be the fourth place team in the AFC West? And everyone's going, oh, what happened? Well, it's a tough division and all those things I just talked about.
Yeah, I remember I did read your article on Monday about the quarterback defense connection here. And there was, I think it was a point in the article talking about Russell Wilson specifically, where it said, like the Seahawks were at their best early on when Russell had the great defensive support, and they didn't really kind of plateau at that point. So there was an argument Seattle could make maybe.
Yeah, and I think Russell Wilson got a lot of respect as the defense and special teams weren't as good because they kept going to the playoffs. But when you now zoom out and you look at, you kind of see the first 5 years and the second 5 years for Russell in Seattle. The first 5, defense, running game, Marshawn Lynch, and then a really good, efficient Russell Wilson who could take you down the field in 2 minutes, made some really clutch throws, tough, but he wasn't really the driver of the success. He was a passenger, and they were 8-4 in the playoffs, went to 2 Super Bowls. Last 5 years, kind of defense, special teams slides to the middle of the pack. Russell Wilson's good, maybe even better, carries a little bit more of it, right? Has him in the mix to have winning records, but they're 1-3 in the playoffs since then, not able to really put them over the top. And that's not uncommon. I mean, that happens with a lot of quarterbacks, but in that AFC West, does he just show up now, right? And lift the team? Some, but how high?
Yeah, that's for sure here. And obviously week 1's coming up here. I feel like there's a lot of interesting games because besides tonight's game with the Bills and the Rams. I mean, you got all these revenge games at the Baker Mayfield game. You got the Carson.
Oh, yeah, I love this week.
Yeah, like what matchups you have circle on your calendar? Say I want to make a point to check out a lot of these action.
Okay, so I'm toggling over here. Here's the ones that I like, and it would help if I click 2022. I want 2021. So, all right, what do I like? Definitely the Baker Mayfield storyline. I love Trey Lance and Justin Fields both playing. In the 49er Bear game. I think that's really interesting. What's going on there? I think the Eagles going to Detroit is interesting because Eagles sort of off-season champions, right? Anointed. And now, Detroit's not great, but I think they're better. I think they're good on their lines. So could Detroit put a scare into them? I don't know. I think Matt Ryan making his debut for the Colts interests me. Tua, the whole offseason with their situation with, hey, Tyreek Hill, do they fall flat against New England or do they roll with it? I really like that one. I love Raiders Chargers. I mean, if I'm the Chargers, can I just ease into the season, right? I mean, it's like, you have to face your worst situation. Like this whole offseason for them is improve the defense, special teams, we got to get past the Raiders. How embarrassing. We couldn't beat the Raiders last year. You got to play them out of the gates. And they just added Devontae Adams and Josh McDaniels.
Yeah.
And you're JC Jackson not playing. I just feel like, wow, what a great win if the Chargers can get it. But that's just a vulnerable situation where the Raiders, no one's really, I mean, say no one's talking about the Raiders, but I think the expectations for the Chargers are higher, and certainly missing the playoffs 2 years with Justin Herbert. If they're 0-1 out of the gates, I love that one. And there's two more. This is half the games. How about Green Bay at Minnesota? Green Bay split with Minnesota last year. So you get Green Bay last year, week 1, 38-3 loss, right? So that intrigues me. Like, we just assume Green Bay is going to have a great year. They probably will, but that's a tough one out of the gates to get a division rival that could play it tough. And then we finish it Monday night. I love Broncos Seahawks. I just think the Broncos are favored by 6.5, but I don't know what the heck's going to happen in that game.
Yeah, I love that one too. I mean, all these revenge storylines are great, and the underrated, and like one that sort of came about because of Zach Wilson injury here. Joe Flacco facing his old team with the Jets here. I think that's a good message. Well,
Flacco revenge game. Yeah, Flacco's interesting to me because I think we've all, most people feel like, his time is past as a starting quarterback and whatnot. But when he taught, backup quarterbacks talk in different ways. Some of them, hey, I'm here to support the starter. And some of them are like, no, I want to prove I'm still a starter. And I feel like Flacco's in that second camp. So, I don't know if they're gonna, what if they won a couple games? I have to look and see what the Jets schedule is out of the gates. Is it possible the Jets could be 2-1? I mean, maybe not. I gotta look and see who they're playing. So they got Baltimore, Cleveland, Cincy. Unlikely.
Yeah.
It's unlikely. But what if they kind of surprised, right?
Yeah. That would be fun.
That would be really interesting. If, what if Flacco played great for 2 of the 3 games? They get 2 of the 3 at home. I mean, I don't know.
You never know. And I mean, obviously, we're not picking the Jets go to the Super Bowl this year. Who were your teams that you think could be the Super Bowl contenders? You get to make a pick today.
Yeah, I think I will go with Green Bay out of the NFC. We'll see. It's obviously an easier conference. I struggle a little bit on the AFC side. I think the smart money probably is Buffalo. I may lean Chiefs. I may just lean Chiefs and make the Bills prove it. I think the Bills are probably the better team, but I'll lean with the experience of the Chiefs, and we'll see, how much they can improve on defense, how much they miss Tyreek Hill. I'll just give a slight advantage to Mahomes and Andy Reid here, but I think the AFC is going to be really tough.
I feel like at the AFC, like if you doesn't matter really who you get out of the AFC, if you get one of those good teams against Green Bay or Tampa or the Rams, they're gonna have a fun Super Bowl either way.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's going to be. I just think it's going to be a fun season, and there's a lot that's kind of at stake for different key characters in the league. We're talking about Russell Wilson, we're talking about Josh Allen and McDermott, right? I mean, we know they're going to be good for a long time, but they really should have got there last year.
Yeah, they absolutely should have.
Yeah, and when you miss those opportunities and think you're in the early realm of your tenure, you don't always get them back. So I think Buffalo is just a really interesting team. It's going to be in that window. They're in that window for a while, but what if they, lose in the playoffs again, right? Early. I mean, that it could easily happen in the AFC.
Absolutely. Be a fun year, Mike. Thanks a lot of time. I really appreciate it. Before I let you go, can you follow social media, keep up with your coverage over at The Athletic?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm on Twitter at Sando NFL, Sando NFL. You can certainly find me on The Athletic. If you go to the Athletic app, you can follow your favorite writers. So you can follow me if I'm in there, and if I'm one of your favorites. I mean, if you hate me, you're probably not listening right now, but you'll get it all delivered in that way and not miss anything.